Quick cross-progression news before I talk about all the other good stuff. The gamers at BMG have been actively working on it for a while, and on May 23rd, which is a few weeks from now, Brawlhalla is going to be doing a full dev stream dedicated to answering any and all questions you have about cross-progression or account merging. Basically anything they're allowed to say, they'll answer it. And if you can't make it, don't you worry, I'll have a recap ready for you as soon as I can with all the important information. I think I actually have a final that day. Oh well. With that out of the way, everything that I'm going to talk about from now on is going into the game on May 17th, and that's pretty soon. That's next Wednesday. First up, we've got something extremely spicy on the way. A proposed experimental feature that completely overhauls backdash. Startup is being reduced both in neutral and while dash dancing, and you can freely cancel it just like a forward dash. Essentially, the only difference between a forward and a backdash with this change would be the acceleration speed you get from it. Otherwise, there's no longer a penalty. No more backdash lag. And this has massive gameplay implications. It's a buff across the board to movement, a buff to every single character in the game, and potentially the largest gameplay change since dash itself was introduced 6 years ago. I actually can't overstate it enough. This could completely shift how Brawlhalla is played because movement is Brawlhalla. Our dashes and dodges and jumps and recoveries are probably the biggest pieces in the game's identity. And this new backdash unlocks a whole world of baits and micro spacing and reverse dash impulse movement options and so many more things that I can't even name right now. It's going to be insane. Plus, they also just tweaked how dashing on platforms work in this most recent set of experimental changes. I haven't even had a chance to try it yet because of exams, but it essentially speeds everything up by automatically forward dashing every time you cancel and making the window larger so it's just easier to do it. And this is nuts. I mean, check this out. This is something that I theory crafted the moment I saw it in the patch notes. You can do this right now in experimental if you wanted to. And also on that note, I just want to say this is exactly what experimental is for. Going buck wild with any and all proposed changes that they have and just letting us be the guinea pigs, test it out. Super pumped that this is the direction we're moving in. I don't know if you can tell my voice. I'm also super hyper right now. I'm sorry, I'm doing this in one take. I gotta stop interrupting myself. Ow. Where was I? I'm just super excited because this is something that I've been asking for a really long time. If you've been around for a while, then you know this idea that use experimental to test things that are absurd and crazy and get real-time feedback on these possible new features. I do want to say though, as exciting as it is, this backdash overhaul could be a mistake. It could give too much freedom and allow for some unhealthy gameplay. But that's not really a big deal, I think, because the truth is, we don't know. We don't know how it's going to affect things, and that's why it's exciting to find out. Most of you probably were not around for this, but there's some lore behind the experimental features and how it completely changed Brawlhalla, because there's something called chain dodging that we used to have, and that was dash before dash. It was essentially an experimental feature that made aggressive play much stronger. Because if you had enough momentum on the ground, you could chase dodge up to 3 times towards your opponent. You know how right now you get a hit and you can chase dodge twice? All you had to do was just move for a few steps and you'd get 3 of them. But after a few months of refining the gameplay and adjusting to these new options, we realized that it was actually too good. There's such thing as too good approach options because you had too much invulnerability, you had too much spatial control, and the gameplay ended up being not so healthy. And it was actually also probably better for defensive play too. That's a whole nother story. But basically, the reason why I bring that up is because we gotta test it. We gotta test it to see. It might take a little while for the meta to really develop. So I just want to say to, I'm telling myself this, temper your expectations, recognize the limitations of first impressions, and just have some fun. Have some fun with a fresh little Brawlhalla. Will this be a permanent fixture in the game, giving us these crazy back and forth speedy movement, baiting, canceling options? Or is it just going to be something that gets tweaked or modified or even scrapped because it doesn't feel quite right? I don't know. Either way, backdashing has been a sore spot for a long time, so I'm pumped. I'm super happy that they're taking a look at it and smoothing out these movement options. I think I said I'm pumped like 4 times now. Clearly, I'm very excited for the upcoming experimental queue. But there's also some universal balance changes that are important to know. Battle Boots Nair is getting nerfed. It doesn't seem like a huge deal. There's one more recovery frame if you miss and a slightly smaller hitbox on the backside, but since the move is already super safe, this doesn't seem like it's going to hurt it too much. If you're a Battle Boots player, I don't think you should be worried. If you're a Blasters player, maybe a little bit though. Blasters seem like they're getting significant nerfs. 2 less damage on Dare and Recovery each, meaning damage buildup and KOs will be offset ever so slightly, and decreased safety on side air through 1 more recovery frame, and less freedom of movement if you miss. That's probably the big one. This should make fadeaway side air slightly less safe, so it's easier to chase people down, easier to punish it. Bow is also getting a couple nerfs. Sidelight and Nair, you're going to be left frozen for just a little bit longer when you whiff, and Nair is also getting that little movement reduction similar to the Blaster's Sair. But if you're a Greatsword player, you might be looking forward to this patch, because apparently it's getting a small buff to Sidelight. When you hit it, the setup location is going to be different. I'm going to be honest with you, I have no idea what that means. Like, I don't, maybe it helps, maybe it hurts. Sometimes these setup location things actually end up hurting combos. If that's the case, I'm sure they're going to revert it. But if you're a Hammer player, you're also going to be happy, probably even more happy, because Hammer Stomp is receiving possibly the biggest buff in the patch. It's going to be safer when you miss it, and it's going to have a slightly bigger hitbox in front of you. So Magyar players, you're eating good. Also, Magyar got a buff. I'll get into that later. Katars are getting a similar nerf to Blasters and Bow. Katar Nair is going to be a little bit harder to combo with, and you'll have less freedom of movement when you miss, and down air will be less safe when you land on the ground with it. Only 2 more things. Lance Downlight has an extra frame of stun, meaning strings like Downlight into Endlight will be significantly better, and in compensation for that, the stacked down air hitbox has been slightly reduced, so if you're lining up right next to the Lance player, down air won't hit you as often. And finally, for these weapons, Orbsair now has less freedom of movement when you miss it as well. Gonna go rapid fire now for the legends that were changed. Caspian Katar Sidesig is gonna kill noticeably later. Kaya's Bow Downsig and Spear Downsig will leave you frozen for slightly longer if you miss it. Lucian Katar Downsig will have a smaller hitbox in front and on top, and it won't kill until significantly later in order to match his low strength archetype. Magyar, Big Boy Magyar, his Hammer Ensig will come out faster, meaning downlight true combos, downlight into Ensig will be easier, and you can also recover out of it faster. The same with his Greatsword Sidesig and Greatsword Downsig. You're not stuck as long after using it. Mirage's Spear Sidesig, Spear Downsig, and Scythe Downsig will leave you frozen slightly longer, similar to the Kaya change, and Teska's Boots Downsig will get a small vertical hitbox reduction, so it's not going to catch jumping opponents as frequently. And finally, Thea. So Thea got a few changes to her Boots Sidesig and Boots Downsig. The Sidesig is going to be slower, more punishable, and it'll kill slightly later for the instant tap version, and then if you hold it down, those will have a trimmed vertical hitbox, so it won't hit as high. And then her Boots Downsig will also be slower to start up and leave you stuck for longer and kill slightly later. Overall, this seems like a potentially meta-tweaking patch in terms of balance. I don't think it's absolutely game-changing, but we gotta see. We have to see exactly how much movement is being taken away from the Blasters, Bow, Orb, and Katar moves before making that judgment. I think the logic here is currently those moves are super easy to fade away with, which is part of why they're used so much in neutral. So I think the goal is to force people to use the other options more in the kit instead of just one dominant move over and over and over again, which seems like a solid decision, but I have no clue. I'm not a dev. I'm just excited to see how it plays out. I think this is the running theme of this patch. This is a very exciting patch. Hammer might be a little kooky, wacky, spooky again, and maybe Greatsword will have a tad more consistency in its setups. Unsure if you guys are experienced mains of those weapons. Let me know as the patch goes on how those changes influence the gameplay. And finally, the last tidbit of information to know is that this is all part of the 100 million player celebration, and that's, by the way, that's absurd, right? Like, I mean, it's just a cool stat. I'm guessing it's based off of install plus launch. That's what I'm guessing, because that's probably how you get your ID, right? So it's not one-to-one with active players, but still, that doesn't take away from how great that is. I've been backing the good old BH since number 75,000. That's about what my ID is. So seeing this game that I adore reach 100 million, yeah, that's incredible. It's definitely worth celebrating. So they are celebrating. They're dropping a new logo. Looks fantastic. I actually genuinely love it. Apparently there's going to be a graphical UI overhaul across the entire game. Another thing, by the way, I've been mentioning forever now, so that's cool to see. In total, it's going to be a 3-week-long event where if you win a game with a legend, you're going to unlock a new color for them, and every legend is going to be available for the first week, so even if you don't own them, you can still unlock it. And if you get the colors for everyone, as in you get 1 win with every character, you're going to unlock it permanently. Any future legend that they release, you're going to have the color for them, similar to Charged OG a while back. Couple other things, Boomerang is graduating from test features, so it'll now drop alongside other gadgets everywhere they're enabled. And the short hop accessibility feature that I went over last video is also permanently being implemented into the main game. Those are 2 big boys, okay? Plopped into experimental that got overwhelming positive reception. And so if we bring things all the way back around full circle to how I started this video talking about the dash changes, I guess I talked about cross progression, but our testing and feedback is incredibly important. It allows us to directly influence the game we want to play. So you can see why I have so much energy. I mean, okay, I also just went for a run, so I got a bit of runner's high right now. Also, I got to poo so bad. But yeah, we have the direct power to control a decent chunk of the features being added simply from our feedback, which is cool. It's tailoring the experience for what we think is good and nice and fun and optimal. That's a weird word to end on, but anyway, there's a handful of other stuff too. I heard there's going to be a new skin where if you change your color swap, it's also going to change the color of the SIG effects. I think we've only seen that with Vector because his airplane changes colors. I don't know, but this is all the important info that I wanted to share with you. If I missed anything, I'm sure someone in the comments will fill you in, but that's about it. Hope you enjoyed. Stay healthy, everyone. Take care. I apologize for being a little bit wild today, but I don't have time to re-record, so my bad.